2, 3, 4.
Alright, mateys, welcome to the high seas. This episode of the Hauntological Society. I be your captain, Eric. And with me, as always, my first mate.
Windy.
What's up, Wendy?
Not much.
How are you doing?
Chilling like a villain. I'm doing good.
Chilling like a villain. We are back fresh from our trip to the Outer Banks, to the lower half of the Outer Banks. Thanks to Jordan and Glenn and Bess and Davis for inviting us. We had a good time. I got to go out sailing on the boat. One day, saw some cool lighthouses and seashells, and got to witness some wild horses. That was pretty cool. But the highlight of our thing, well, for me, one of the things was got to see Blackbeard's house. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool
It's the oldest house in Beaufort.
with the Go Tar Heels flag or whatever it was called on it.
At least it was Tar Heels and not Duke. So go Heels.
Well, I would have thought maybe they would follow the theme,
Right,
maybe,
right.
but to each their own.
I guess whoever lives there, though, they probably don't want to be like, all these motherfuckers keep coming and looking at my house, trying to see where
Wanting
Blackbeard lives.
tour and
Yeah.
all this shit.
I noticed they had like a no loitering, no trespassing sign on the steps, so makes sense.
For people like you.
Well, hey, I didn't go knock on the door. We just drove by and I took a picture.
We did.
It was cool to just see it. I'll post a picture on our Facebook, but I at least wanted to get eyes on it. And apparently he had a couple houses, but that's one of the ones he lived in.
What I thought was interesting was you would think, being a pirate, maybe he would live. Well, I guess that strip there was probably like general store,
mhm.
bar, whatever,
Probably didn't look
through
anything
there.
like it did now.
Exactly. And so they had to, put their houses like behind
Yeah.
all that. So
I mean, and who knows? Like back then, like they could have had the dock would have been more open or whatever. He could have seen the water from his house.
right.
Who knows? But it was kind of like back behind, and I would have never realized that was there had that our captain of our ship or our sailboat told us it was over there. By the way, shout out to the if you're ever in the Outer Banks and you want to take a cool cruise or whatever, go check out the Lookout cruises. They're pretty badass. Captain Robert's pretty badass. He's a good dude.
And Reagan. And
Yeah.
I forgot the other one's name.
Oh,
Corona.
no, it was Paulina. There was a Paulina. It could have been Robert's wife. I can't
That
remember.
was Padma, I think.
Padma? Well,
Yeah.
was her name like Deanna? I'm sorry we're forgetting your name. But everybody was super cool. The Lookout cruises, based out of Beaufort, they're
They
awesome.
feed you excellent food.
Yes, you get that.
So good.
They serve you lunch like right on the sailboat, and we had like sandwiches from a local restaurant and potato salad, pasta salad, cookie. I mean, it was very good.
Unlimited drinks. I mean,
It was like unlimited drinks, and if you wanted like alcohol, it was like $5 a drink, and they served like wine and beer. Can't really beat it. And it was a 6-hour cruise, and like I said, we got to see wild horses. A sea turtle popped up, which I didn't get to see him.
I didn't see nothing.
I did see the shark though that popped up. That was pretty cool. And it was really wild when you got out on that island where we went like seashelling or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like a movie because you just look around and all you can see is like land and surrounded by ocean. It was probably one of the craziest things ever, for me.
It was pretty cool, and I really enjoyed like when we docked to go shelling.
Mhm.
We literally walked across to the other side of the water.
We did.
And not very far.
Yeah.
Where are my seashells, by the way?
They're in the car.
Okay.
I got to get them out, but yeah, yeah. I mean, the island was like what? I don't know, 2 acres across. Like,
Maybe.
I don't know. It wasn't very big.
I mean, and imagine if like the tide was in or whatever.
Well, it had to go across because if you remember, the shells went all the way across it. So I imagine at some point the ocean did cross that island. I don't know if it crosses it at any point, on a regular basis, but if it does, I mean that's pretty wild.
It was nice. Me and Gabe got blistered. Eric barely swam because it was too cold. And yeah, had fun.
The wind was blowing, in my defense, but I did swim.
In 85-degree weather.
But the wind was blowing; it was cold.
Jesus.
We did get some cool ghost stories. One of them came with pictures, and stay tuned because that's our next story. No spoilers. What else? Let's see. Next time, so when we go back next year, I want to go to the Maritime Museum. We talked about that while we're
yeah.
down there,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of like Blackbeard artifacts inside in the Maritime Museum. Because apparently, so we talked about going to Fort Macon because we did an episode on Fort Macon, and I thought we could go by there. We unfortunately didn't make it to Fort Macon, but to be able to see some of the Blackbeard stuff was pretty cool.
Well, normally we have a week at
Yeah.
the beach, and I'm glad we're now adding this to our yearly trips or whatever.
Yeah.
I think maybe next time we need to make an itinerary with like the most things we want to do and rate them from highest to lowest, and just try to get through as many as we can.
But what's really cool is that when I didn't realize this until after I was like reading about it. But when we were, when we were coming back into to dock or whatever, we went past Fort Macon, and the Queen Anne's Revenge is actually just off the shore there in front of the Fort Macon.
Okay.
And so I did get pictures of the Fort Macon, but of course you can't see where the ship is. But man, it would have been cool to like if I'd have known that, because I don't know, not that you can see it, but damn, that's awesome.
Yeah. Gives us something to look forward to next year.
Yeah. So but like I said, they found it, and so a lot of those artifacts are in that Maritime Museum, which I'm looking forward to going to and checking out.
Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What else? I'm trying to think. Did we do anything else cool? Did eat some good food. The place we stayed at was very cool. It was a neat little like lodge place. Kind of like a lodge. It was like a lodge built into a hotel type setting or motel type setting. It was very quaint. Had a lot of stuff to do. We got a random fireworks display. It did rain a little bit, but not bad. So I can't really complain too much about the weather. Even though I did say it was cold, it wasn't
Windy.
it wasn't that bad. It was okay.
I did read in the book, the little information book on the little motel or whatever,
Yeah.
that said it was once a pre-existing like it was a smaller like little roadside hotel.
Okay.
So when the owner of the Atlantis purchased it and did a total remodel of the place, because it was odd how our units were separated.
Yeah.
And so he built them around the existing greenery, shrubbery, fauna, flora, all that, so that nothing was disrupted.
Okay.
For the wildlife.
I think you were trying to say preserved and kind of mixed it with it.
I had a damn brain fart.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. How by the way, how cool was that pool? Because it was kind of like you had like a little pool up top, and then it had like a waterfall that went down to a kiddie pool, but it was surrounded by these very cool like large trees
Wax
that was sort of like interwoven into it, and it had like a very cool feel to it. It almost felt like you were in a jungle inside the pool.
Myrtles. That's what wax myrtles.
Wax
That's
myrtles.
yeah.
Is that where Myrtle Beach is called Myrtle Beach? Because of the plants? No idea.
Might have to look up that history there.
Old Dirty Myrtle.
Oh, dirty murder.
We'll be there soon enough. Soon enough. Yeah. And as usual, for whatever reason, I believe I have the curse of the dolphin because every time I go to the beach, I'm always looking out for dolphins. Everybody's like, "Oh, we saw the dolphins." I've never fucking seen them once. We go on the cruise, and I'm like, man, maybe some dolphins will follow our ship around, or our little boat. I keep saying ship. Follow our boat around. No dolphins. Wild horses were cool, but I'd love to see some dolphins.
I'm trying to think of where we took that ferry ride and they swam beside the boat. I think with the map he took us around or whatever
Yeah.
was in kind of like a busy area,
Mm.
and I think they're more on the less popular side.
If you look at the pictures and video of like when they do the wild horse and dolphin cruise in the morning, it looks like it's in the same area.
And it could be.
Yeah.
It really could be.
Like he's got some cool videos posted up. Like you can see like a pod of them. They're just kind of like, 3 of them like humping over. Their fins come up. Very cool. I would love to see it. I even went to Florida and still had to go to a fucking aquarium to see a dolphin. And it was hurt at that. Like it wasn't even like a fully healthy dolphin.
So what did you think about his horn?
Oh yeah. So he every time we went by somewhere that was like a bar, restaurant,
Beach.
yeah, anytime there was people basically, he had this like giant conch shell that he would blow into and it was loud as shit.
He knows how to he's learned how to use that tank.
He said he got it from the Bahamas.
Yes. Yes.
Was it Bimini?
Yes, they're very popular over there. That's where I got all those from at our other home.
Okay. Yeah, and he like explained it. He said that like they have native conchs up there, but they don't have the air chamber that one does, and so it's not as loud. And damn, because I thought it was gonna be funny. He was just gonna blow into it and he was gonna hit like an air horn. Hell no, that dude was like, like it was nuts. And
like the Hawaiians and the
oh yeah, and he was like, the guy was always promoting. You got to hand it to him. He's always working.
yeah, even to people who are on another charter.
Oh yeah,
we passed.
Yeah. Captain Robert, you were the man. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Hopefully you're listening. So, as you can guess, we're talking about pirates today.
Carry on.
Scavengers of the sea. You old salty dogs. And we just watched the documentary on pirates on Netflix to kind of get us ready in the mood. It's called? What was it called?
I have no clue. You started.
Damn, it was something like Black Kingdom, Pirates of the Black King. I don't know. Fuck it. It's on Netflix. It's about pirates. You can find it. And they mention some of the heavy hitters that are around the Caribbean and the Eastern Seaboard. They didn't really mention any of the ones that go into the Gulf, which I was kind of sad about because John Lafitte is a cool one. There's a couple that hang around in there, and usually the ones that end up around Louisiana are pretty cool. But they did hit like the ones out that ended up off North Carolina, which was cool. Specifically Blackbeard.
Who started in Nassau, which I thought was pretty weird as well.
Basically, there was like a pirate. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but there was a pirate. Basically, the pirates made their own federation, or it's basically like a country without a land. And they were based out of the Caribbean. Yeah. So let's get into it then.
Let's do it.
Oh, all right. As you know, Blackbeard, raised the black, and I don't believe their flags still actually had skulls and crossbones. I think that's more of a popular misconception, but it was mostly just a black flag, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
So anyway, by now everyone has at least seen one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, if not all, and they are good movies. You like the movies?
I do. Yeah. Except Johnny Depp, who does.
I like it when he's like pulling into the harbor and his ship is like sinking, and he's like riding on the mast at the beginning, and like that British soldier's like, "You can't park here," and he's like, "You can't park that ship here," and he's like, "What ship?" And he kind of like steps off onto the dock. Oh, did you know who his character is based on? Johnny Depp?
I guess I'm going to say Blackbeard. I
No,
don't know.
it's
No.
not. A good guess though. It's based off of Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, which is why
Okay.
Keith Richards actually plays his dad in like part 2 or part 3.
Gotcha.
He just based him off of like drunk Keith Richards. It was like, this is the guy that I'm gonna play.
Okay.
Yep. Fun fact for you. Anyway, everybody's seen the Karen View movies. And even though the movies are fun and imaginative, it has given a cliche idea of how pirates should look and act. But the real pirates were less a drunken Keith Richards, like I just mentioned, and more like a ruthless mercenaries that killed for money legally. And by the way, I don't know if I wrote it in here, but their legal pact from the king was called a letter of marque, and that's what allowed them to be legal pirates.
Okay.
And this all takes place before America is a country. We're still a colony, so technically you're still under the king's rule, so to speak, and everything had to go through the crown. And so when the pirates were running around, they still had to answer to the king. There was no Americans. But if I were to ask you to describe a pirate, it wouldn't surprise me if the first image that came to your mind was, of course, Johnny Depp. But if I were to ask you to name a real pirate, there's only one name that seems to pop up more than any other pirate: Blackbeard. Edward Teach or Edward Thatch. He has two different names because we don't really know exactly what his name was.
Which is crazy.
Well,
to me.
they don't know a lot about his history. They know who he is. They know enough about him, but his surname, because they probably changed his name while he was out sailing, so they don't know exactly what his true name was. Teach or Thatch, either one. Born, damn, here I am getting ahead of myself. Born under the name Edward Teach or Thatch, it's believed he was born around 1680, and it's thought that he was born in the port town of Bristol, England. With some thoughts that he could have been born in Jamaica, but wherever he was born, it's commonly agreed that he was close to the sea. Yeah, it's also worth mentioning, though, I don't believe that he was a Jamaican per se. He was probably a British citizen born in the island of the Bahamas, if he was born in the Bahamas.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
They just use Nassau as like a stopping place, or I don't know, get off for a while. And
It was a colonizing. And later on we see that we'll get it. I don't want to get that myself.
Carry on.
Carry on. Cheerio. Many privateers like William Kidd, Miguel Enriquez, and Amaro Pargo took to the high seas, helping countries like France, England, and the Dutch Republic, which is currently known as Holland, to defeat the Spanish fleets legally under the royal pardons of their kings. These contracts are known as marques. Like I said, the letter of marque. The war lasted from 1701 to 1714, and these contracts are known. Oh, shit. And this was most certainly where Blackbeard learned to sail, living life at sea, plundering, and commandeering the ships of his enemies. But after the war, many of the privateers felt lost, and so instead of melting into society, they chose a life of piracy. Plus, not only that, it gave them ungodly amounts of like riches and wealth for basically doing nothing.
Right.
A lot of the pirates didn't even have to go rob the ship; they just sent their men over, and then they got the spoils of the robs.
Or have to pay the king for the taxes or whatever.
Once they became pirates, they weren't paying taxes.
Right.
Around 1716, Blackbeard joined the crew of Benjamin Hornigold. He established the Republic of the Pirates in Nassau. He would attack merchant ships throughout the Caribbean and all along the eastern seaboard, eventually having the most heavily armored sloop to sail the seas at the time in that region named the Ranger. Hornet Gold became a mentor for Blackbeard. But what is a sloop? Do you know what a sloop is?
No.
It's a single mast ship. Most sloops have one mast rigged with fore and aft sails, sails that run parallel to the ship's keel and allowing for better maneuverability, especially in coastal waters. So they were like kind of smaller, fast ships, two sails on a single mast, and filled with tons of cannons.
The ship was.
The ship was.
Okay.
The crew size was typically manned by a small crew, often between 20 and 75 men, and it was armed with cannons, but not heavily, often around 4 to 14. I said heavily, but 14 cannons on a small ship is quite a bit of cannons for a small ship.
Yeah.
Pirate sloops might be modified for more firepower. And the pirates liked the sloops because they were perfect for chasing down merchant ships or evading naval vessels. They were also fast and agile, and which meant they could sail in shallow waters like estuaries and bays, which larger ships couldn't access. And the smaller crew needs made it efficient for pirate operations. So the less people on board, the less they were responsible for. So anyway, that's a sloop. Hang on, Sloopy. Sloopy, hang on. You're welcome for that. So Hornet Gull was known to captain multiple ships, which seemed to be the standard practice for pirates. And in an act of fate that would live in infamy, he gave Edward Teach, Blackbeard, his own ship and crew, and together they sailed and plundered without restraint. From the Caribbean to Cuba and along the eastern seaboard of now USA, one of the most notable captures was when Blackbeard and Hornigold captured a French slave ship named La Concorde. That's French for the Concorde. I wonder if it has something to do with the region that it comes from, because you got Concord grapes, which they used to make wine.
Correct.
I wonder if that's just named for where it came from.
Well, I don't know, because that's a good question, because I assume you could grow Concord grapes other places, you know.
Yeah, but so in France, so when you're making wine, you can only call certain wines certain things because of where they're grown. Like we can make champagne in America, but it's not champagne because it's just sparkling wine. Because only champagne comes from the Champagne region in France.
Oh,
like
didn't know that.
like we can grow like California and stuff is like really good for growing wines. I mean, we even grow wines here in North Carolina,
Right.
but you can't call them the same thing as they do in France because they're not grown in that particular region.
Okay.
This ship was an upgrade from Teach's previous sloop, and it would become the flagship of his personal fleet, the Queen Anne's Revenge herself. This sloop was fast and well armed, and it was carrying 40 plus guns. And much like Blackbeard himself, it was quick and nimble and had so many guns that they easily overwhelmed their adversaries. Blackbeard was known to carry, what was it? Four, hold on. I think 4 gun belts that held over, that basically said he had like 14 guns strapped to the front of him, as well as like probably a sword. He made sure that he was heavily armed. They were single shot guns though, so it ensured that if he got into a fight, he would have more firepower than somebody else.
Instead of having to reload after you fire.
Yep. Now, also want to mention this. It's kind of what I was noting out earlier. This was a slave ship, and Blackbeard was known to allow free slaves as part of his crew, and he would use them as his mates. I guess it was easier for him to pull slaves into work because the other people weren't trying to work with the slaves. And so Blackbeard would go and say, "Hey, I'll put you guys on my ship," and he allowed them to work with him. And later on, we saw this in the show. He actually turned on them, like made this pact with them, took them onto land, and sold them without them even knowing what was going on.
Yeah, pretty shitty.
Yeah, it was very shitty. Blackbeard was not a good dude. At first, I was like, "Oh, well, at least he's like helping the slaves," and then he turns around and fucks them over. So
ulterior motive.
Yeah. I was like, man, he is so progressive for his time. And then never mind, he doesn't care. Fucking ass. The Queen was a 3-masted frigate that carried the crew of 300 people and 40 cannons. His fleet consisted of 2 more sloops. One carried 90 men and 10 cannons, and another housed around 50 men and 8 cannons. And it was said that Blackbeard commanded over 400 men during his reign of terror. Yeah, small army. One of the most daring moves in his career, Blackbeard and his fleet blockaded the port of Charleston. He took the citizens and sailors hostage, raided 9 other ships, relieving them of loot and goods, and sent his men into town where they also were looted and plundering before ending up at local pubs maintaining their pirate dignity, aka getting very drunk.
Gotcha.
Blackbeard wasn't looking for money and fame, though. He needed medicine for the outbreak of STDs that affected his crew. It was said that Blackbeard himself was infected with syphilis, but that's to be expected from a guy who reportedly had 14 wives. And who knows how many concubines along the way.
Mm-hmm.
They were pirates.
Is this where we saw them get a shot?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, all right. I was just wanting to make sure I was remembering this correctly.
So, according Reagan told us this while we were on the ship. She said that he was looking for the syphilis treatment, and it was the treatment for syphilis at the time was a syringe filled with mercury, the same mercury that goes into your thermometer, and the tip of it was the same diameter of a number 2 pencil that they would inject into the end of your wiener and shoot the mercury into your body.
Well, you remember on the documentary it said it would either kill the virus and him as well,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't die,
Right.
which was crazy.
You know, when you hear people say that they had like Mad Hatter's disease, you've heard of people say that, or like the
Yes.
Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
You know why he's called the Mad Hatter? Because for some reason, I can't remember. There is a reason they did this, but they would put mercury inside their hats
Okay.
and wear it, and when they would put it on, it would absorb into their skin and cause them to go like mad. And so it was called the Mad Hatter disease.
Why would you want to do that?
They're you have to look it up. I don't remember exactly why,
Okay.
but that's why he's called the Mad Hatter.
Gotcha.
And so it's not uncommon for them to use mercury for different types of things, like for weird treatments. And they didn't know any better. They thought it was the cure. They were poisoning themselves. I think it's crazy that they use something so toxic. But to them, it was like the medicine, the treatment.
New Day Vicodin.
Yeah. I'm not sure he wanted to take any more of those shots than he had to. That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so Blackbeard said his I think he took the governor hostage and was pissed off because he didn't have his medicine that he was trying to get. And the governor was like, "Hey, your meds are over here on the dock." And he was like, "Well, he's like, well, my men were supposed to bring it back." He goes, "Your men are drunk in the pub." And so Blackbeard got his men rounded up, got them back on board, got the chest of medicine, and took off. And that was how he took hold of hostage of Charleston without ever stepping foot on the land. And when the men came back on, they dragged themselves back to the ships, and the 400-pound chest of medicine, which was loaded onto the ship, and it had been sitting on the harbor the whole time, like I said. Blackbeard released the prisoners who had been tortured and were half naked. Satisfied, he sailed up the eastern coast. I don't know that I would say I was satisfied knowing I had to inject a large syringe of mercury into my wiener.
So he got rid of men to take the chest?
Well, he when he went into port, he started robbing everybody, and he started taking all these people hostage, like locals and stuff.
Right.
And I think if he saw anybody, he'd just be like, grab them, grab them, grab them. And he would like strip them naked and torture them. And I guess he would send word to the governor or whoever was there and say, "We got your people. I need my shit."
Right.
You know? And finally, I guess the governor's like, "Hey, your shit's on over here." And he's like, "Fuck, send me my men and my medicine." Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
Nope.
You were nodding your head like you were going to say something.
Well, I was just trying to take it all in and think about it. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Awkward silence. Now, in 1718, while sailing off the coast of North Carolina, Queen Anne's Revenge ran ashore and on the beaches. Oh shit! Ran ashore of the beaches and on the sandbar, along with another ship in the fleet. I heard that Blackbeard did this on purpose. He was running for. I think he was running for some other ships, and he beached it so that he could get his men off quickly and his treasure off and run away. Seems like a weird move to me.
Yeah, because then you lose your source of transportation.
Especially like you kind of associate the Queen Anne's Revenge with Blackbeard, so to me it feels like his like kind of like his baby. I guess he didn't give a shit about it though because he was just like, it's just some friendship I
I'll
got.
just steal another one.
Yeah, I'll take another one. It's like Grand Theft Auto, but like as a pirate. This what the fuck did I write? This happened in the inlet near Beaufort, just in front of Fort Macon, and on November 22nd of the same year, on Ocracoke Island, Blackbeard and his men were ambushed by militia sent by the governor of Virginia. When the battle was over, Blackbeard had been beheaded and his body was thrown out to sea. His head was hung from the mast of their ship to proclaim victory as they sailed back to Virginia. When they pulled into port, his head was on the front of the ship.
Sounds like Vikings.
Yeah, just as brutal. So the all the king's men were and all the king's women. They were all upset because they give these people like free reign to like go and do whatever they want, and now that the war is over, and these men like continue to do what they were doing before, and so they were kind of like put into like a position where they didn't know how to deal with them, and the pirates were causing problems for the people, the colonizers, and they were causing problems for the king's people because the king the king couldn't send shipment to America. The Americans couldn't send taxes or whatever back to the king. Um, the Spanish was moving stuff around before this. The pirates had got a hold of all their wealth, and they just basically could do whatever they wanted to because they were now super wealthy. There was nothing holding them back, no chains to restrain them, and so a lot of these like locals started getting upset and pissed off, and they started to take matters into their own hands because they were killing the local people, killing their like raping their women. They were, causing such havoc that people like the governor in Virginia and North Carolina started forming these militias to get rid of these lawlessness that's off the coast. And so they were kind of put into these places where they sort of had to like, go after them. And
start taking them down.
Yeah, because their free reign was just like causing such problems.
Right.
So even though Blackbeard was beheaded, thrown to the sea, he didn't go away. Today, people still report seeing the spirit of Blackbeard looking for his head. His headless body is seen swimming around an area called Teach's Hole, aptly named after Edward Teach himself. I think this is on Ocracoke Island.
Okay.
Also, his headless body is seen walking around the Ocracoke Island, also looking for his head. Ghostly lights appear near or in Teach's Hole, and that's said to be his crewmen protecting the treasure.
Okay.
As well, another place he is said to haunt is Hampton, Virginia, and that's where his head was taken to after it left Ocracoke. Once again, people claim to see ghostly lights and a headless sailor searching for his head. I think it's weird that they see his body all the way up in Virginia,
Really
even though they left him in North Carolina.
We never know where it ended.
Yeah. No matter where you see Blackbeard, it's sure to send a chill up your spine and strike fear to your heart. In true classic American folklore, Blackbeard has been glorified and pushed into the limelight, but the truth is, he was a hired killer and a thief who destroyed many, many lives. And that is the story of Blackbeard's ghost.
Awesome. Very well.
Radio, matey.
So if you could have seen one thing that belonged to him, what would it be?
Like artifact?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see anything off the ship. I would like to see like what's left of the ship down there. I imagine the ship is probably pretty much gone, but it would be cool to see like, how you see like photographs of the Titanic?
Yeah.
Be like, I kind of know what that ship looked like. It'd be kind of cool to see what the Queen Anne's Revenge looked like.
So is it still underwater somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've they brought up a lot of the artifacts. They found like the what they call the treasure. There's a word.
Chest?
There's a word for it that they use. It's like a debris field, but it's where all the loot and stuff is.
Okay.
And so they kind of like can see like where it's at. A lot of his cannons are brought up. I mean, it'd just be kind of cool to see like personal artifacts that belong to like him personally, maybe not just on his ship. Um,
I thought you might say like his hat or his boots or something.
I mean, it would be cool to see like like a sword or something that he actually had on him.
Right.
That'd be really cool.
One of the 4
Yeah.
belts.
Oh man, how cool would that be to actually find a belt like still full of guns?
Mhm.
I mean, you know, it would probably never happen, but I heard a rumor like there's a place up there that they claim they have his skull. So it's rumored that his skull is still around.
In Virginia?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what truth is that, so I don't want to be like, hey, this is the word, and that's what it is.
Right.
But
Because I find that kind of disrespectful to like display that. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if it's Blackbeard's skull, but there's one famous figure. I have to look it up. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he was beheaded. Somewhere has his skull, and they actually use his skull as a cup.
Wow.
It could be Blackbeard, but I can't remember. Like crazy shit though. But I guess like when you cause so much havoc and destruction and everything else, I guess they kind of look at it as like, well, fair game, I guess.
Right. He
I don't
gets
know.
what he deserves.
What would if you could see like an artifact from a pirate ship? I mean, what would you like to see?
I would like to see like they talk about diamonds and rubies and gold and all that stuff. So I think I would like to see a treasure chest of like old jewelry.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to see them like bring up like one of those like chests full of like Spanish doubloons and pieces of
Right.
8 and like all those like diamonds and like the shit they find in the Goonies.
That would be really, really cool because that stuff is probably off the chart now.
Oh yeah. What was it? We were watching Josh Gates, and he was looking at that piece of jewelry.
Yes.
It was like worth like hundreds, like 10 million or something like that, or what was
Yes.
it?
And it was had to be horrible to wear.
Oh yeah.
But I guess jewelry just kind of like screams um, influence.
Yeah.
Well,
Look at me.
yeah.
Speaking of pirates, it's weird that we did this episode this week because on the what's today's date? The 8th. I think it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or Friday. I think it was yesterday though. It was the 40th anniversary of the Goonies.
Oh, you didn't watch it? I would
I
have
know.
totally expected you to be watching that.
I think it was Friday, and I missed it totally. But I just saw it after the fact. I was like, "Damn, 40 years of the Goonies." One-eyed Willie. That was the pirate in the Goonies. One-eyed
Oh,
Willie.
okay. Okay.
But they found like the whole intact pirate ship that was inside the cave.
Which would have been really
That
cool.
would be fucking cool.
Yeah, that would have been
That's
cool.
what I was gonna say. Like, if you can find like a whole pirate ship like that, that'd be fucking cool. Like where he just parked in a cave and be like,
To try to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Sean. When I talked about Jean Lafitte, he was the French pirate down near Louisiana. He put some treasure inside the bayou and left some of his crewmen. And anybody who knew where he left it, he killed them. And so nobody knew where it was. And then when he went back to get his treasure, he killed his crewmen because they knew where the hiding spot was as well.
Exactly.
Yep. And so I think we might cover this one day, but there's a story of like you can hear the crewmen around there like still protecting the treasure.
Oh, okay. So when he came back and then he killed the crewman who had been protecting it,
Yeah.
did he stay there?
I mean, he took the treasure, or he could have like, I think he took it, but he could have like hid more treasure there. And he's like, "This is such a good hiding spot. I'll just kill everybody." And
But then you'd have to
Leave
leave
the treasure
somebody
here.
else to guard that.
I mean, who would like volunteer to stay after that though?
Yeah.
Me, I got it. Oh man,
He does.
I don't know. When I watch the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, like even though I know the pirates are shitty, like it always like, I guess it's that sense of adventure, like being on the ocean, like sailing the seas. You know, they make it look like it's such a fucking, it's a blast. It was probably terrible. I mean, the conditions are probably horrible.
Yes, probably pitch black at
Oh,
night.
it absolutely was.
You know, not being able to see land on any side
Mhm.
would probably be the most scary thing for me.
Well, anybody who sailed the seas back in the early days, I'm talking about this time, like the people who sailed from England to here, like the Vikings when they would just sail around. Those people who sailed around, they were fucking badasses.
Yeah, they had to be.
I always said that. I think in my past life, I was like part like I must have been a sailor or something because I have this strange attraction with the sea. I love the ocean.
Papa.
Wrong kind of sailor. That would make you olive oil.
Yeah. Oh, olive oil.
I am's what I am.
And what was that? Sweet pea?
Sweet pea.
Sweet pea.
Yep. Sweet pea.
Start
Wow.
calling him that. See what he says.
He'll never know.
He won't.
I think there's some cool like there's a thing you can look up. It's you can take a road trip around the coastline of North Carolina and you can hit all the Blackbeard spots. If you're ever interested. I think he lived spent a lot of his time in Bath, by the way, which is a town in North on the coast of North Carolina. It's a little farther north of it, up near Raleigh.
Yeah.
So he stayed up there. He stayed in Beaufort. Died at Ocracoke. A lot of the pirates hung out in the Bahamas, Nassau, Bimini. I'm sure there's lots of like remnants of that stuff down there. I wonder what kind of artifacts they have in like the Bahamas of them.
Quite a bit. We can take a trip to see.
We will. That reminds me. I know you and I have talked about this, but I think this is fascinating. You know, Bourbon Street in New Orleans has that reputation of being like the party city, the place to go to like kind of like people like to be wild and ravage and whatever. And they tell you that the reason Bourbon Street is the way that it is today is because of the pirates back in the day, and the tradition just continued.
Also rowdy when they docked, and yeah,
So
makes sense.
the pirates used to hang out on Bourbon Street. So when you go to Bourbon Street in New Orleans and you do whatever, you're carrying on the pirate tradition, so to speak. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, pirates are bad people, but I don't know. The stories are fascinating. They're fun to tell. Like I was saying about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, it's just cool to see like the adventure, the swashbuckling, so to speak, sailing the seas. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like the stories of pirates and everything. Well, like I said, about does it. We're gonna wrap it up, but check out our Facebook page because I posted some. I think I'll post the pictures of the Blackbeard's house on there. I'll try to post the map to his to the trip you can take on the coast. And stay tuned next week because we got more pictures going along with our story. Winnie, what you got?
I got nothing.
All right. We are on Facebook, Chronological Society. Find us there. There's two pages. One's a business page. The other one is our actual page. Try not to follow our business page. The business page has the Satanic Panic at the Disco profile picture. That's the wrong one. Get the one that has the ghost profile.
Why don't you just delete it? Well,
I can't figure it out. Facebook's so fucking weird. I'll get there. Just follow us. Follow both if you want to, but make sure you follow both of them because I only post on one really.
If no content ever gets added to one of them, that's the bad one.
That's the wrong one. If you get on there and nothing happens, that's not the place to be. Check out our merch store. There's a link on our Facebook page. There also is a link to where you can find all our podcasts and all the streaming apps, which you already found it because you're listening to it right now. But if you have some stories about Blackbeard, you got some stories coming up that you want us to share, reach out to us, thehonologicalsociety@gmail.com. And when you're listening to this, please rate and review it because we need the 5-star reviews. Because the more 5-star reviews we get, the more listeners we get, and we're trying to grow this podcast. What else?
Like, follow, and subscribe.
Yes. And make sure you hit that alert button so you know whenever we drop the new episodes. That's true. She's laughing, but that's true. Do that.
I just hear that a whole lot.
We watch a lot of YouTube.
We do.
Oh, what else, Wendy? What do you got?
I don't have a thing.
Thanks everybody who keeps coming back and listening. We really appreciate you. I know. I think I saw we got some new followers. To those of you who just started following us, we really appreciate you listening to us. Please tell your friends, have them tell some friends, have them tell some friends, and
Cousins, brothers, uncles,
yeah.
neighbors.
Anybody. Tell them all. Get your stories. Let's do this. All right, and that. I'm Eric.
I'm Wendy.
We're out.